Welcome to Screen Quest, a podcast where a fellowship of film lovers and armchair movie experts play film roulette. This is session 0, so we're going to be meeting your permanent co-host today and explaining a little bit about how this podcast works. I am one of your co-hosts, Chris Waterman from Jacksonville, Florida, and I am joined today by May Finch, also from Jacksonville, Florida.
Hello, hello.
We also have Will Rotondi from Greenville, South Carolina.
Hey, what's going on?
All right, so since this is our very first episode, and really at that, it's a mini-sode where we're explaining how the show works, I want to get to know you all. So May, starting with you, hit me with a movie that you found was integral to becoming a film lover, something that made you into a movie lover. And then tell me how you prefer to watch a movie. What's your ideal environment to watch a film? And then finally, what do you hope to get out of the podcast?
So I knew what I'd have to answer immediately on this film because there is a movie I have seen probably 20 times, and I'm not like a serial rewatcher ever. And that would be The Princess Bride. And I picked it because as I have aged, I first saw this when I was 6 or 7. I've started loving different parts of it. When I was little, I had the stereotypical growing up on princess movies thing. And I was like, oh, this is just a really funny princess movie. I love this. And then as I got older, I was like, wait, no, the writing is really good. These are great puns. And then I think the most recent time I watched it, kind of all the work that they've done with playing with the fantasy romance tropes and just taking them to kind of a ridiculous extreme really sunk in for me. So yeah, I think it's just the fact that there are so many different layers to movies and things that different people can get out of them is really cool, and I love talking about that. As far as my preferred viewing, it depends. If I'm seeing a big sci-fi, high production value movie, I do want to see that in theaters. Dune comes to mind. Whereas if I'm seeing anything that is a comedy or an older film or something that I am hate watching, I definitely want to have my friends around so we can chat and talk through it.
Excellent. And then what do you hope to get out of the podcast? Why are you doing this? We'll talk a little bit about what the podcast is in a second, but I'm just curious as to everyone's motivations to do this, because a podcast can be a little bit of a time commitment, and I think it's always cool to know why somebody wants to do one.
Well, of course, an item on my life bucket list is to be the token girl in a podcast. So I've achieved that now.
Oh my goodness.
But for this podcast specifically, again, I love talking about films with movies. I feel like over the past couple of years with the pandemic, it made being around my friends a lot harder. And a thing that I would still do is have Zoom watch parties with people. And that was really nice. And yeah, I just want to keep doing it. And if we can pull in our listeners to watch and talk about, movies with us too, that would be great.
Excellent. Yeah, I love your film selection, by the way. The Princess Bride is magical in every sense of the word. I think that's a great example of a film that gets better with each viewing every time that I see it. And I fully support that as a movie that got you into movies, because it is just excellent. All right, Mr. Rotondi. So hit us with a movie that made you a movie lover, your ideal environment to watch a film, and what you hope to get out of the podcast.
Well, I think that, man, trying to think back about all the stuff that I watched in I guess the 90s would have been when I was young. I was just to the point where I was sort of separating out, I don't know, just watching a film for entertainment and actually kind of picking up on certain aspects of maybe it's something more than just that, was probably, I don't know, I feel like Back to the Future sort of became that movie for me. It's one of those that I can go back and watch it today and still love it as much as when I was a kid, but definitely understand a lot more weird subtext behind it now watching it and being able to make fun of it or also still enjoy it. But I think that was it for me. But it was also like one of those films where I was still young enough where I was sort of like listening to the dialogue and incepting certain words that were said that probably should not have been repeated in polite company. And so I definitely remember as a kid, I was playing with Legos, and there's a scene at the very beginning of the film where Marty gets in the DeLorean to go back in time, and he's being chased by some Libyans that are trying to get their plutonium back. And he says some crack when he's driving the DeLorean about, man, let's see if these bastards can do 90. And that was like a line that I'm just playing Legos, and I'm like, I'm just gonna say this, as I'm playing with these characters. And that was something that my mom picked up on and was not pleased that was what I took away from that film, and B, it has helped make me the person I am today. So but no, I love that film. I mean, yeah, it's got it's the adventure story, it's science fiction, which I love, which I think has always been a part of my film exposure and what I gravitate toward. And it's classic soundtrack, director producer combo that I mean pretty much made my childhood in a lot of ways. So that would be my choice. When it comes to like my favorite like venue or way to watch a film, man, May, I gotta say, you actually took what I was gonna say. It's a combination, and Dune is an awesome example, because when there is like a visually stunning film, and it doesn't even have to be current day, but like, you think back like 2001: A Space Odyssey would have been sort of the same way back in the day, but like anything that is just enthralling, and the music's, just shaking the room, and the special effects are just amazing. And can't discount the acting too, of course, but it's like, yeah, when all those things line up, and it's, you want to be as immersed as possible, then yeah, if you can make it to the theater and watch something like that, where you just sort of like, you were in the zone and you don't want anybody interrupting you, then that I can definitely gravitate toward too. But as it's also equally as entertaining to watch a film either a second time around with a group of friends, or for the first time if it's not really something that you are that invested in seeing every detail behind, where you can sort of detach and sit back and make it be more of like a mystery science theater 3000 kind of a deal, and poke fun at everything. Then yeah, I'm behind that too. I think I was much more of the I need to focus when I was younger, and then I kind of got out of that when I probably around high school. I finally loosened up a little bit more to be okay with that. But yeah, I'd have to go with both. As for what I'm looking for out of the podcast, I think that what I really found appealing about your idea for it when we all first started talking about it was just to make it more of a tabletop game, to make it more engaging, so that it wasn't just we're going to talk about this film and critique it like so many other podcasts and writers and film review is done already. It's that we're engaging in something that we don't necessarily know how it's going to turn out. There's different perspectives that we're going to have, but it's also going to be that we get to go along on this quest. We get to have this adventure together, and we don't really know what's going to happen in the next round. And so in some ways, and I don't know if I can name drop any games in here if you're going to bleep me out, which either is fine, but it's like, apples to apples, or like Cards Against Humanity, where, there doesn't have to be a right answer. It's we're all just, we're giving an honest take about how we feel about something, and, for entertainment value and for the sharing of different perspectives. And I think that to me is what I think is going to be the best part about this. So.
Awesome. Love the movie choice. I have had many a drunken discussions about Back to the Future is a perfect movie. Like there is I think like objectively you can kind of point to so many elements of that film that work together just perfectly, and everything about it is just iconic, right? That's the word that comes to mind for the original Back to the Future, to be clear. Like I know some of the sequels, like as much as I love them, are not as fondly remembered, or thought of necessarily, but
if you enjoy watching a time traveling fever dream, then they are for you.
Yes.
But I love that choice. Well, I will go last here. So for me, the film that I would select as the one that got me into movies is Jaws. I saw that probably a little too young. And my enjoyment very much stemmed as as it does when you're too young for something, from sort of the brutal violence of it, and the like, oh, this is a bit naughty, watching something that's like quite scary, and kind of peeking through my fingers. And then as I got older, anytime that was on television, back when I watched television, remember television when that was the thing that people did, I would just stop. Like, didn't matter where in the film, like it was like, I would have to stop and just finish it from whatever point it was on. And I started kind of going like, what is it about this movie? And then I realized, like, as I really like got interested in like studying film and reading books about film, that I was not the only one that had the experience with that. And it's like, considered the first summer blockbuster film, and it has just sort of persisted, and it resonates in a way with people. This movie about a shark that's terrorizing a New England town has a lot of layers, and explores a lot of really interesting kind of themes. And it's just a hell of a cast as well. I mean, seeing Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw and Roy Scheider, like, it's just such a perfect, like, it's not really a pairing, but what's a trio, of cast members, and they work brilliantly together. So as far as ideal environments, definitely in the movie theaters, or like in a small audience at home. Like, I really enjoy the communal experience of watching a film, whether that's with like 2 or 3 people or like a large crowd. I think there is just this wonderful catharsis that can happen, whether it's a comedy or a horror film, or something that's like a tragedy. Going through that collectively, it's really, really a beautiful thing to watch an audience dynamic. So that's kind of a non-answer, I guess. It could, but in an audience setting, for sure, big or small. And then what I hope to get out of the podcast, well, I have been kicking around the idea of doing a film podcast for about 5 years, and was quite frustrated with trying to get one off the ground. And I knew that I wanted to do something that was not just current event, right? Like, let's review the newest like films or talk about the newest films. Like, I knew that was just like something that's done a lot. And quite frankly, like, I wasn't interested in doing that. I don't mind talking about the occasional new movie, but I wanted to do something that was a bit different, and like fun is the word that kept coming over and over. And as we started talking, it was neat to just see what emerged out of this. And my favorite thing about what we've done so far, and the thing I'm most proud of, is how collaborative this has been. So I do want to kind of stress that to the audience. Like, this has been a collaborative process. Everyone's been heavily involved in the making of it. So
We have spreadsheets.
We have spreadsheets. We do. We have lots and lots of spreadsheets. And I know you were kidding earlier, May, but you are definitely not the token woman co-host. I promise you. Like, I this has just been such a pleasure already, and like, we're not even to our first official episode. So before I go into explaining the game, let me just say thank both of you for making this such an awesome experience already.
Likewise, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so what the hell is Screen Quest? We've been sitting here for like 13 and a half minutes introducing ourselves and telling you about us. What is this thing that you presumably want to know more about and hopefully listen to weekly? Well, let me give you a couple of goals that we have for the podcast, and I'll give you a rundown. So our main intent, as I said, is to have fun, and secondly, to learn. So even though we say that we're armchair experts, that is a little bit of a cheeky expression, because none of us are experts. We are going to make mistakes on this podcast. We're going to say things that are just wrong, and that's okay. We want this to be a judgment-free zone. We love cinephiles, but we don't like snobs. All right, so no snobs. You can be a cinephile, love movies, talk about movies, but don't be a snob. Film snobs are just not interesting people. I don't think they're just jerks. So don't be like that. And then finally, we wanted this to be something that the audience can engage in along with us. So as I'll explain in a second, you will have the opportunity to go out and watch a film in between episodes of the podcast, and then come back and listen to our discussion and engage on social media with us. We encourage that engagement, and we want you to all get excited about movies with us. Just don't be a jerk. That's our only request. Don't be a jerk. Be cordial. All right. So now it's time to talk about how it all goes down. So I am now showing what our game board is going to look like. This is in Tabletop Simulator. And what we've done here is we've constructed 2 custom decks. One of them is a main quest deck. One of them is a side quest deck. Our side quest cards are going to generate spontaneous and open-ended discussions. An example might be, tell me about a scene in a film where you could no longer suspend your disbelief as an audience member, for example. Our main quests deck is going to provide us with specific films and topics both, which we'll discuss on the following week's episode. This gives the co-host and you, the audience, time to watch the movie, think about the topic of discussion, and we'll be drawing that first card very shortly to generate our first main quest, which will be the topic of the show for episode 1. So I just want to say, last but not least, we worked really, really hard, in particular on the main quest, to create a diverse list of films spanning a dozen different genres across nearly 100 years of film history from places all over the world. We're really, really proud of our list and the topics that we've created, and we really sincerely hope that you watch along as we experience these movies. Some of them will be for the first time for all of us on the podcast. All right.
Yeah.
And
Epic.
are we ready for our first card?
Yes, we are.
I guess.
All right.
We'll see.
Chris.
Let's see what our first card is. We're going to give them a good shuffle. Good shuffle, good shuffle, good shuffle, good shuffle, good shuffle.
Big money.
And here is our first card. It's a bullet time.
Ooh.
All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
So bullet time, our definition for this category is analyze a specific scene in a film and discuss why it has impact. And this is bullet time number 5, which is May's nomination of Contact. So we will be discussing the mirror scene from Contact. I am
We're going to
quite
be
excited.
starting with like my favorite topic. This is fantastic.
I have not seen this movie in years, so this is amazing. I absolutely positively cannot wait. So that does it for episode 0. We now have our first film. We will be back with a full episode in which we'll draw a card from our side quest deck and have a little spontaneous chat. We'll have some fun activities at the end of the show, but our primary film for next episode is Contact. So go out there and watch it, and we'll see you back in about a week.
Oh, hold on, Chris. You didn't notice my whiteboard?
Yes, the whiteboard. Please expound on the whiteboard.
Well, there, as we said, we may get some things wrong as we go through this podcast, but occasionally I would like to challenge both of you and your film trivia. So on my whiteboard is a fact or a myth, and I want you to tell me which one it is. Is Psycho the first US film to show a toilet flush?
I know the answer to this, so I'm going to let Will go first, but I do know the answer to this.
Yeah, I had a suspicion you would, man. I'm gonna go with false.
It's true.
Oh man.
Actually.
What?
The
Oh,
answer is nuanced. It is the first film to show a toilet flush after the Hayes Act is instituted.
I see.
However, there is a 1928 film called, did I close the tab?
It's called Filthy Flappers. No, I'm kidding.
There's a 1928 film called The Crowd that does show a toilet flush.
Well,
1928, baby.
and that is how you
Awesome.
get got. See, a judgment-free zone.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, see, I learned something new already today. I love that. Because I'd always been, told and read that it was, but that's an important distinction. The Hays Code, for our listeners that don't know, was a decency. It really was just a way to censor content and films, but it was a decency code that stipulated what you could or could not have in a film, lest you corrupt the greater public. So,
And toilets were taboo.
yeah, because nobody poops in real life. It's something that does not happen. Well, thank you so much, May, for sharing and educating us. We really appreciate you hanging out with us for this first mini-sode. We can't wait to get started. We hope you will watch along week to week. I think this is going to be an excellent way to broaden your cinematic palette a bit, and listen to us debate and discuss a wide variety of films in a fun way. We will see you in about a week.
Bye.
Bye.